Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I get so many questions about women's health. We're going to really dive into that in today's podcast. We're going to go through what you should be doing, nutrition, exercise-wise, as you transition through the different stages of, being young and fertile, and then going into perimenopause and menopause as your hormones change, what you should be doing through these stages to really optimize your health. And so our guest is Tonya Fines, and she is a mom of 3 amazing children. She's also a former international competitive figure athlete. She represented both Canada and New Zealand and placed 5th in the NAC Worlds in 2015. She's a board certified holistic health practitioner with the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. She has 25 plus years experience working in the health, fitness, and wellness industry as a coach, nutrition counselor, and holistic practitioner. And she's also a member of Team Critical Bench in Clearwater, Florida. And she's the co-host of the Strong by Design podcast, another great podcast, guys, to check out, the Strong by Design podcast. And she's a creator of Firm and Tight, the Menopause Rescue Protocol, which we're going to talk more about, and also the co-creator of Unlock Your Spine. So Tonya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yes, for sure. And so let's talk about your journey, how you became a fitness athlete and how you really got into holistic health.
Yeah, well, I've always been that kind of thing always resonated with me. Like I was always that weird little girl that was like picking weeds and wondering what they did and stuff like that. So I've always been very interested in nutrition and food. I've always been very active. I grew up in a very very competitive and sports-minded family. So it was just kind of by default that happened. As far as becoming a women's fitness competitor, though, that was never really on my radar. I was always active in the gym, active doing things, but I was more sports-minded. But in my late 30s, I herniated 2 discs in my back. And when it happened, we really didn't know what happened. I just woke up one morning and I literally could hardly move. Turning my neck, it was excruciating. So there began a very long process to figure out what was wrong with me and then what to do. And I was adamant I wasn't going to have surgery. Pretty much any specialist I saw wanted to cut in right away. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm too young. I'm too fit. There has to be something else going on. So to make a really long story short, found out that it was herniated discs. And I actually ended up, I was living in Canada at the time, and I ended up getting in to see a neuro specialist. And when he walked in, he looked all of about 16 years old. I was like, oh no. But he actually said, I'm not going to touch you at all. I don't want to do surgery. And he said, are you active, or have you ever been active at lifting and working out? I said, well, yes. And he said, get back to that. Just slowly start getting back to that. And I did. And within a month, I just felt incredible. My focus in the gym shifted.
Yeah.
I had like intention, and things kind of just snowballed. It gained momentum, and I started to respond really quick. So then I started looking at nutrition and how, what was the best nutrition to feed myself to keep getting these results. And one thing led to another. And I thought, I need to have a goal. I'm somebody that needs a goal, because otherwise I kind of start to get a little bored. So I have to keep increasing the intensity. And one of the coaches at the gym that was working at the gym I trained at said, you should consider doing a competition. At first I thought, there's no way, but I needed the goal and I did it. And the rest is history. I got kind of hooked into that. I have an intense mindset. So every time I did a competition, it was like, okay, what I loved most of all was that I was in competition with myself. Mm-hmm. So I always wanted to be like, hey, what's my next goal? Where do I want to be for the next one? And that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so many women are intimidated by strength training and resistance training, right?
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
How important is that for a woman's body, and how do they overcome that kind of mental hurdle?
Well, that's the thing. It is a mental hurdle. It's really a mindset. It's a consciousness. It's a way of thinking. It's a belief system. And that is the biggest, it is a big hurdle. And women do tend to feel like overwhelmed, or they get scared. It's a fear mindset too, that, well, if I start moving heavy things, I'm going to look like a man. And I wish that somehow we could just so quickly eradicate that. I think we're getting better, because I think now, like, even though social media still inundates us with these really like unattainable kind of images and stuff, it is showing us that strong and muscle is sexy and beautiful and feminine. So I think we're getting there. But apart from the aesthetic look, the health benefits in terms of just having a strong body, because I will always say to clients, getting older doesn't mean getting old. It doesn't have to mean getting old. And what we're doing now, it's like a bank account. The investing that we're doing now in our body has such tremendous payoff for quality of life and longevity and the ability to move confidently and safely in our environment while reducing risk of injury. I mean, it's so huge. So building that strength is not only going to look really great and feminine, it's going to stay with you to keep you strong and healthy. And we start talking about things like bone density and just even cognitive function and ability. It's just so important because this vessel was meant to move.
Yeah, for sure. And you really get more benefit from resistance training for the time you put into it than you would from cardiovascular training as well. In my opinion, I think both can be great. But resistance training really offers a lot of great benefits. And like you said, I mean, women, unless you're injecting testosterone, you don't have the testosterone levels that a man does. So you're not going to develop that sort of bulky type of look. Now, what are the tips that you give women as they get started with resistance training?
Well, number one is to, especially if it's really new for them, I do recommend, getting a coach. Like I was a coach, I've been a coach for years, but I had a coach. If I didn't believe in the coaching industry, I wouldn't be doing it. And even coaches, really good coaches, have coaches of their own. They need the accountability. So for a woman that comes in and she's kind of testing the waters and thinking, okay, I'll give this a try, I do recommend get a coach, get somebody that's going to sit down and ask you about your goals and work with you to come up with a plan to get you there. That's number one. I also make it I'm very transparent as far as your nutrition plays a lot into this. And because I sometimes there's that connection there where I think women can get caught up in the cardio part. Like I know a lot of women that their cardio endurance is absolutely through the roof, and yet they're still not happy with how they look. So I tie in nutrition and tracking, like actually write down your goals, write down your progress, because I think when we start to see that and acknowledge it and celebrate it, it becomes that inspiration. Because motivation's great, but it can be very short-lived. You can be motivated this morning and then by noon, you're just not motivated anymore. So finding out what those, those inspiring things that keep you going. So getting a coach, formulating a realistic plan, being very real as far as your schedule, what's the commitment you're willing to put in? Because there's no point in sitting down and saying, okay, I'm going to join the gym and I'm going to go 4 days a week. When you look at your schedule, know darn well that's not going to happen between a job and children and volunteer work. So it has to be very realistic and attainable so that you stick with it, because it's the consistency that yields the results ultimately.
Right. That's a great tip. It's not you being gung-ho and aggressive in the beginning. It's really your consistency over time. That's the most important thing. Now, what are some of the nutrition principles that you have learned over the years, and how has that kind of changed and evolved? What are you practicing now when it comes to your nutrition?
Well, it's a great question, because nutrition, like anything, does change with us. What my body needed in my 20s when I was wanting to start a family and, looking at pregnancy and childbirth and all of those things, very different than where I'm at now at my life. I don't need that amount of food. B, I really don't have that kind of appetite anymore either. So it's the nutrition as far as evolution or how it's changed for me. It comes down to, what are you doing right now in your life? And how do you feel your body to maximize all of that? So, for somebody that works in health and fitness, to be very honest, I work out, but I like to do things. I like to hike and bike and surf and all of that stuff. But really looking at the big picture, I'm way more sedentary than I've ever been, because a large amount of my job in health and fitness now is creating content and working with people and getting things out there. So I have to be very mindful of getting up and moving with intention. But it's, where are you at now in your life? What are the things that you're doing, and how do you feed your body in the best way possible to make so that you're kind of operating at peak level as much as you can. So if you're a young woman in her 20s and you're starting a family and you're very active, there are certain, foods or certain nutrition principles you need to follow. I'm a huge believer in, I don't believe in restriction to the point that life is boring. I mean, if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I'd probably have like a little bistro and I'd be making people very happy with food. However, I think it's really important to look at whole foods. I realize that people are very busy. So there's a lot of convenience foods that can make it easy. And I understand that, I understand if you're burning the candle at both ends and running crazy, like just life is chaos, that can be very appealing. But I think if people pause and actually take a moment and realize, well, here's 1 or 2 days a week that I can kind of do some prepping, like bake do a batch of chicken breast or make a big pot of homemade soup or whatever that is. You have meals throughout the week that allow you to still eat well, feed your body with whole, healthy foods. I'm a big advocate for fats. I think fats are something that are underconsumed. Healthy fats. I think there's still a fear mindset with fat. They're either fearful or they're taking keto and kind of maybe doing it, like they don't understand it well enough that they're over consuming. So I think fats are very important. And again, I think tracking, not in terms of a prison sentence tracking, but I think there's a lot of unconscious eating that happens in our life. So
sure. Emotional eating, a lot of things like that.
Yes. Yes. And so again, I think we're always like, we can talk about fitness and like world nutrition, because I love the topic of nutrition. We can talk about nutrition, all the principles and things that, a person can be doing to optimize their health and wellness. Yet there is so much emotional baggage or trauma or fear mindsets that have such a huge impact that you're constantly really working with both of them with people.
Yeah. So what are some of the top foods that women should be looking to get into their diet?
I think I would say definitely, ladies, start consuming, if you're not, look at healthy fats. Avocados, even really good cuts of meat. Like, I enjoy red meat. And because of my iron levels, it's something that I don't really like to supplement a lot. So I like to get my supplementation through food because I love food. So, really healthy cuts of meat, things like avocados, the oils that you cook with, avocado oil, coconut oil, nuts and seeds. These are things that are easily available and easy to incorporate into a diet in a way that's really awesome and delicious. So definitely the fats. Fiber. I also think people are largely, we're not getting enough fiber. And particularly when a client sits down in front of me and she's like, I just can't lose the weight. And so we kind of start looking at the food and I'm like, overall your eating's pretty good. We need to get you moving, but your fiber intake is seriously low. So if you're struggling with weight loss, how much fiber are you getting? And then just really looking at whole, like fruits, vegetables, like whole foods. I do like to eat in season. There's a couple of reasons. One, it usually is cheaper, more economical to eat in season, as well as when you're eating in season. I think our body just works with that because we're living in our environment, we're moving and growing and doing things in our environment. So I think what's available seasonally in our area, I think it's just the synchronicity that the body and what's available works really well together. And I think our body actually has the ability to absorb even more from those foods in those seasons.
Yeah, for sure. Now, were you doing anything unique when you were training for your fitness competitions from a nutrition perspective?
Yeah, no, that's a very different. That has, definitely it still involves your health and wellness. But when you're eating to get on stage, especially those last few months, the reality is it's very restrictive. It's not a lot of fun. There's not a lot of color because you're trying to cut body fat as much as possible for a very specific time. Now, going into that, I had a healthy mindset and a healthy relationship with food. Otherwise, I never would have in a million years done it because that kind of training can certainly be a trigger for someone that struggles with healthy relationships with food. So training for fitness competition, lots of protein. I wasn't too restrictive on carbs. I mean, towards the end, yes, depending where I was at in the leaning out process. But I also, living in New Zealand, I was outside all the time and so very active. I needed those carbs. Plus, I was running a business, so my brain needed fat and carbs too as well to function. So it was very restrictive. Calories were low, but I was making sure I was including high volume foods, so like kales and spinaches. The meats. I was getting, in one meal, the amount of volume for what I had on my plate was huge, that I never really felt like I was starving to death.
Felt more satiated.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about, like, obviously you had this spinal injury where you had these degenerative discs, right? And you created now this Align Your Spine program. Let's talk a little bit about that and what that entails.
Well, the Spinal Line program is a very, how do I put it? It's definitely non-invasive. It's something that anybody can do. Of course, we always recommend, depending what your situation is, what you're dealing with, you always want to check with your physio, your doctors, just to make sure that, you might want to sit down and go, I've got this program. Here's the exercises. I feel like I'm there. Is there anything you see here that maybe I shouldn't do? So that's always number one. But really what it is, it's a sequential flow of very mild movements that are meant to help realign your spine to its natural S curve. Because when we're born, for most of us, I mean, things happen, but our spine has this natural S curve to support our structure and our frame. Now, over time, with things like sitting or injuries or accident, lots of things can compromise or, cause that S curve to come out of alignment from mildly to dramatically. And there's lots of therapies and things that can be done. I mean, people do yoga, people see their chiropractor, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things. But here's a program that you can have at home and you can work through. We say if all you can do is once a day, great, because doing it once is better than not doing it at all. But maybe as you get stronger, as you feel more comfortable in doing these movements, doing it up to 3 times a day is phenomenal, because it's like your at-home working resource that you can go through at any point in time, that you have 10 to 20 minutes that you can work through it and begin, I'll say, persuading those vertebrae and your spine to come back to its natural alignment. And people start to notice that their breathing's better, their digestion's better, they're not having headaches. Like, it's not just about pain. It's just when your spine is in correct alignment, all of the body's systems and functions work better.
Yeah, so true. I have a degree in chiropractic, and so for years I practiced, and it was amazing, when we help put the spine back in position. And then, just like you mentioned, teaching stability exercises so the person can have stability. And so many people lack stability in their core musculature, in their neck and their lower back. And so they're not able to hold those adjustments. And when we start to do that, it's amazing what happens, because the nervous system is what lives within the spine, and it influences all the organ systems of the body. So yeah, so something all of us need to be aware of, and maintaining a healthy spine is so critical to overall health. So it's great. It's great that you have a program that people can access where they can do at-home exercises to be working on this.
Yeah, I like to tell people it's almost like for me, because when I started lifting and my core strength improved, I started to feel so much better. When those discs were no longer herniated, the pain went. But I use the Unlock Your Spine program, and I consider it's my supplement. It's supplemental to just living well, because I sit a lot during the day. Then I've got my commute to and from work, and being very work focused, I can get caught into that mindset or that zone where I'm just working. Then all of a sudden I pick my head up and it's been 4 hours. I haven't eaten, I haven't moved, and that's not good. So it's probably the best supplement that I've ever used in terms of just my spinal health and just overall health and feeling good.
Yeah, so good. And what are some key nutrition principles for women to have strong bones, healthy, stable joints? What are some key things?
Well, again, I'm going to bring up fats. We need those. Yeah. I mean, think of it like, if you don't oil a bike chain, it gets rusty and it does. So our joints need not just our joints, but our joints definitely need the oils. Our entire body needs those healthy fats. So again, I'm always bringing up fats. I love the fats. I think we need them. And I think women particularly, again, I think a lot of it comes to the psychological, maybe fear mindset, but I do think we're getting better. So women, it's okay to eat the good fats. Okay. As well as,
if they're listening to my podcast, they know, got to get the healthy fats in for sure.
Good. Yes, exactly. And and that's the thing. There's so many really accredited resources. There's your show and your YouTube channel and your books. There's a lot of really good people out there that know what they're talking about, that there are resources. You don't necessarily have to go and pay somebody a lot of money to sit down and get them to help you. I mean, those are options too, but there's a lot of resources out there that show you just how simple it is that you can get yourself going. Right. So definitely the fats. As well, again, like your whole really bright, colorful foods, because they're so loaded with minerals that our body needs, and vitamins and antioxidants, things that are going to help absorb into bones to help keep bones strong, because again, with women, just being born female puts you in a higher risk zone of osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, and all of those. So as women, we really do need to be aware of that. And, we know that. I mean, it's not a secret. There's all kinds of papers and research that show that women, if we don't really take care of this could possibly happen. So knowing that in our 20s and 30s gives us years of time to do the right things to create a really solid, stable structure, strong bones, healthy bones that can carry us through.
Right. So getting a lot of those trace mineral rich foods.
Yes.
I also like things like broth,
yes,
like chicken broth, beef broth, things like that are great. Collagen protein can be great. Sea vegetables, wild caught fish, grass-fed meats, all super rich.
All of those are excellent. And again, we no longer have to go to like a Whole Foods specialty market to get these. Like our local Publix here has, and it like at one time it was a very tiny like organic food section, and it has absolutely grown.
Yes.
So it's become more commonplace, which is fantastic because it's available to everyone. And when you were talking about some of these foods, because these are all foods that I love and are in my diet. And, there are some people out there that are just very picky eaters. They have a very sensitive palate. There's a lot of things they don't like the taste of. So having said that, there are really good quality supplements. You can get like Vital Proteins carries a collagen supplement. There are very high quality alternatives to still get the stuff in your diet. So you don't really have to be a victim of, well, I don't like those foods. I can't eat those foods. Okay, well, so how else can we include them? Here's the things you like that you're getting. So where do we need to supplement? Because I also don't believe that people need to like have everything. Like we can kind of go into that zone too, where people just think, well, they have so much and then they've got all this stuff and they can't possibly eat it all in a day because they're trying to do too much at once. And so it's important to know, again, going back to where are you at in your life? What are your goals? And ultimately you want to wake up feeling well-rested, energized, with the ability to not only physically, but cognitively and mentally meet the demands of your day and thrive, and then be able to go to bed and have a good night's sleep again. So your body does all of that good work at night.
Yeah, so true. So let's talk about the menopause. What is it called? The menopause
protocol?
Yeah. Okay. So many women are struggling with menopausal symptoms, hot flashes, loss
weight
of
gain,
libido, hair loss, weight gain. So what are your principles here for the rescue protocol?
When I sat down to really focus on, okay, I want to write something and put something together. What I will say is there's no great big huge secret. There's no magic formula for this. If you're a woman, you're going to go through menopause.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And I will tell women you can go through it like this, that roller coaster, or you can go through it like this, because there are things we can do there's things that you can do that can have an impact to help reduce some of those symptoms that you're having. Now, I've met women that have kind of sailed through it. Like, they might have the odd hot flash, their sleep might be interrupted, but they kind of breeze through it. But then in interviewing them, when I look at what they've done in their life, I think a lot of that has been that investment part that I've talked about. They've just maintained such a healthy lifestyle that their body transitioned through it, but they weren't feeling feeling like they were crazy. For a lot of women that are really struggling with it, number one is, you do want to speak with a doctor. You want to have some baseline blood work done. You do want to check where hormone levels are at. Because some women, because I don't ever want a woman to feel guilty about it, but some women will end up needing maybe some HRT for a limited amount of time to help out. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think women should feel like a failure or ashamed of it. Sometimes that has to be part of the formula. But as far as principles, this is like a working resource to kind of help women feel like you're not alone. Here are symptoms that you may experience. You may experience all of them. You may experience some of them. Some of them you may experience really bad. And we kind of break it down. Like if you are experiencing if hot flashes, let's say, is something that you're struggling with, here are things that you can start doing now that will help have an impact and start to reduce the intensity of those. It may not get rid of them. Some women it does. They all of a sudden just find, wow, just switching, getting some of those fats in and creating a bedtime routine made a huge difference in my hot flashes. Cutting out alcohol to a point. I shouldn't say cutting out, but maybe limiting. Okay. So I'm very transparent in here are some things that you may have been doing that no longer actually work that well with your body and what it's going through. So we have to make some adjustments and changes. Yeah. Body awareness is key. What are the symptoms you're feeling? What are the things you're really noticing? How is it affecting you? Okay, so what can we do with your nutrition and exercise that can have the greatest impact to start reducing these symptoms to help get you through it without feeling like you're going crazy?
Yeah, for sure. Now, what are some of your top strategies for hot flashes?
For hot flashes, well, exercise for sure. Any kind of movement that just gets more oxygen into the body is going to help. So, and it doesn't have to be, again, women are like, oh, I hate exercise. I'm like, well, do you like going for a walk? Do you have a dog? Find something that you like. Most people have something that they like, whether it's yoga or some that do like lifting or some that like to go for a jog, but getting and being consistent. Like let's pull out, I have clients pull out their calendars and write down all the things that they can't not show up for, like work, things like that. Let's put in all the things that you have that are non-negotiable. And then we look at the time, the rest of the week and the times. It's like, okay, so you have every Tuesday from 7 to 9, you have an hour. What can we put in that hour for you that you would enjoy doing? So exercise is definitely one. Definitely with hot flashes, things, the fats, healthy fats seem to be very helpful in helping to reduce those, as well as some adaptogens like ashwagandha. That's one that I talk a little bit about in the menopause rescue protocol. So ashwagandha is another adaptogen that you can get. Well, you used to only be able to get at health food stores, but I've seen it on the shelves at Publix, and you can add a couple drops of that to a tea or a shake or a smoothie. The other thing is caffeine and alcohol. If a woman is, and I'm guilty myself, I was especially like with 5 years of university, learned how to drink lots of coffee in a day, yeah. But reducing, because the minute you tell somebody they have to give something up, they're going to leave. They're going to go do it anyway. So it's like, okay, how do we still allow you to have that without having an entire pot of coffee in the morning? So cutting back on caffeine, finding alternate caffeine replacements that taste really good, and looking at alcohol consumption. Those are typically the big ones that we can work with to make changes to help reduce the hot flashes.
Yeah, all really good information. And, a lot of women are also struggling with weight gain as they get up in age there and go through menopause. So what are some of your best strategies outside of what you already talked about for weight gain?
Well, I did talk about the exercise. I talked about the good fats. With the weight gain, because that it sounds, when I say it, I can hear people's eyes roll, but it is so impactful because a lot of, like, with menopause, it does target that spare tire area, the middle. It really does affect the waistline, which is mentally, it just makes women not feel very good about themselves.
Yeah, and that's associated with insulin resistance too. And you're gaining more body fat in your belly area. That's associated with insulin resistance. If it's in more of the buttocks area, it can oftentimes be an estrogen, just high estrogen levels.
Yes.
But yeah, as women go through menopause, they oftentimes start to struggle with insulin resistance.
That's right. That's absolutely. So again, this is where like blood work can come in really handy to actually give us a really clear picture of what's happening. So as far as at that level, what can we do? Like, is there supplementation? Is it worth getting one of those little the glucose that you do in the mornings to get your fasted blood sugar, things like, because that's all just really good feedback that and I think most people, you don't have to be a scientist or a doctor, but there's things that have made it available to us that make it so easy for us to get that instant feedback and go, oh, okay, here's where I'm at this morning, so here's what I should do and here's what I really need to avoid. The one thing I do want to stress in terms of that belly fat, outside of like the nutrition and the exercise and having some blood work done to figure out what can be done from those fundamentals, but stress management, because cortisol is a huge culprit in all of this as well. And when our cortisol levels go up, fat likes to sit and hang around, and it's not, I often tell women, I empathize. It is tougher. It's more of a challenge to lose that weight going through menopause, but it's not impossible. It's just, you've got to be consistent. And we do spend a lot of time talking about, okay, so stress management. What are we doing about that? Because if you're already stressed out about things in your life, now you're stressed out about the belly fat, now you're stressed out about menopause, you're stressed about it, just builds and builds and builds and builds. And this isn't doing anything to help with that. So again, it's not a cure. It's not a magic wand we can wave, but it does have a tremendous amount of influence. And what I see with women that start to practice coping mechanisms for their stress, their sleep improves. And it's really interesting how all of a sudden, when they start getting quality sleep, their battle against that weight they start to feel a little more in control of it. And they start to, although small, they start to notice that, okay, it's taking time, but it's working.
Yeah, sleep is so critical. What are your top, let's say your top 3 or 4 hacks to help improve sleep quality?
Number one is your routine. I think as human beings, we do respond well to a routine, and to have a really good routine, you actually have to sort of establish a bedtime. As opposed to just going through your day and then like, oh, it's Tuesday, it's 9:00. I think I'll go to bed. And then on the way to the bedroom, you stop, you fold a load of laundry, and then you make sure, oh, you got to let the dog out, and it's all of that. So you have to establish a very, I'll say, strict bedtime. Now, if you're on holidays or maybe you're out at a wedding, of course that's not going to happen. But again, it's the consistency part.
Yeah.
Because when we have that bedtime, whether let's say it's 10:00. At 9:00 doesn't mean you have to have your shower, put on your pajamas, and jump into bed. It just means there are really some really key things we can start doing that tells our brain we're shutting down for the day. And the body starts to respond. So that could be shutting off the electronics. Maybe you like light music. Maybe you do a bit of reading. Maybe it is a bath with some essential oil. Those are like, really, that's my big hack is what's the bedtime? Okay, what's the routine going to be? And again, that changes from person to person. I like personally for myself, my established bedtime is like 10:00. And so the electronics go off. Well, I don't have a TV, so that doesn't matter. But my phone goes off. It's in the other room. And I have some light music in the background. I usually go through like the unlock your spine routine. I do some stretching, something like that. I crawl into bed. I do a little bit of reading, pleasure reading, because I do so much research reading during the day that I have just like a fun, entertaining book, and I do some reading, and that works for me so that, by 9:45, my brain and my brain's ready to fall asleep and my body's ready to follow along with it.
Yeah, that's so good. I always tell people you shouldn't have goals after 9 p.m. because if you have goals, then you're going to drive up more sympathetic nervous system hormones, more of your stress hormones, and you're going to get that second wind. You're not going to be able to fall asleep effectively. And then actually, reading before bed helps activate that parasympathetic nervous system. So it's actually a really good thing to do to help calm your brain, help set you up for great sleep. Dimming your lights, always super critical.
Super dark room is good. Yeah,
for sure. And there's also research that is out that shows that going to bed at roughly the same time on a nightly basis, like if you were going to bed from, let's say, getting 8 hours from, let's say, 10 to 6 or 11 to 7, is significantly better. You actually get a lot better sleep quality than if you were to get the same amount of hours, but change it up from night to night, right? Like going to bed at midnight and sleeping till 8. So your body really loves that routine. So I think
It does.
tips.
The body responds so well. It responds so well to routine that, again, when we have those moments, like maybe we're on a holiday, maybe we were out at a wedding and so we got home late. So you might, let's say you're away for 5 days. So that kind of established bedtime gets a little blurred. The fact that if you have established that and been maintaining that for months and weeks and years, whatever, your ability to get back on, like your body's response getting back to it is so much faster.
Yeah. Circadian rhythm optimization is so critical for overall health. And so let's talk about some of your best things for helping reduce stress and cortisol levels.
Okay. Stress I love talking about stress because stress isn't always bad. There is good stress. Like when I'm in the gym doing deadlifts, that's great stress.
Right.
It's when the stress becomes, when it starts to, I'll use the word debilitating. It's a bit of an extreme word, but when it gets in the way that it kind of causes us a paralysis in our life. And all of a sudden we get that foggy head, which is panic. We're in panic. We're in that fight or flight response, which then raises cortisol again. And it really, no good decisions really come out of that kind of mindset. But it's so very individual specific. Again, what works. Like I have so many friends that are so great at the whole meditation thing, and I'm terrible at it. I'm ADD. So for me to actually, like, my mind's constantly, and so I've actually worked with some very high level, individuals that they're all into the transcendental, and they were going to coach me and help me. And their coaching was excellent. They're like, let all that stuff come up, let it come up and then let it go. But I was just terrible at it. So if you have that ability to kind of be still in your space, and it doesn't have to be a long time. And I'm not going to even say quiet your mind, because for a lot of us, that's just not an easy thing to do. Everything that's going on out there ends up in here. But if you have that ability in the morning, and like, I've kind of reframed how I think about meditation. Your morning meditation could be simple as you get up in the morning and maybe you have that cup of coffee and you're sitting outside, or maybe you're sitting in your room and it's just quiet and you're just kind of in that space with yourself, feeling some sense of gratitude for your day, having some, feelings of positivity, looking forward to what your day is going to involve. That can be enough to help get people in this very calm zone to start from. It relaxes the mind, it relaxes the body. Because the minute the mind gets wound up, the body's already there. It's right. I mean, this is a great team here. So meditation, if it works for you, whatever works for you is what you have to do. Some people, like a stretching, I find, like for myself, I find getting up in the morning and a 10-minute stretching routine that's my jam. That is what works. That is what it kind of, I feel centered. I feel balanced. I feel just, I'm ready for my day. My brain is ready. My body's ready. That's what primes me. And again, nutrition. Nutrition can sometimes get us spun up. And sometimes if we need to be spun up, that's okay. If you're going out to run a marathon, you kind of want that nutrition's going to fuel you. So you just feel like you're ready to go. But I watch things like processed foods, sugars, caffeine. These are things I monitor because I don't, for myself, and for a lot of people, I feel like they really don't do us any favors in helping us to work with our stress to manage it the best we can. Because a lot of times a stress response is to eat. And typically what we will go for is nothing that's really overly healthy.
Yeah. What are your top 3 favorite exercise movements that you think if everybody could do, they would dramatically improve their health?
My top 3 favorites. Well, I love, for me, one of my absolute favorites is bird dogs. I love it for core, and I love it for balance. And for something that looks so benign, I think it's very impactful, not just for our body, but our brain.
Yeah, bird dog is basically when you're on all fours So you're on your knees and your hands, and then you're basically doing like a cross crawl movement.
Yes.
With your opposite leg and arm, right? So if you bring up your right arm, then you bring up your left leg. So it's this opposite movement, and it's really great exercise, again, for core, like you said, balance, right? It's used oftentimes by physical therapists for core rehab, right?
Yes.
And it's also great for prehab, right? So for preventing an injury.
Exactly. And it's like, because my top 3 that I'm going to mention here are kind of like that anybody can do them. But the bird dog it's always in my lifting warm up, always. Cause like when I'm working out in the gym, I like the big lifts. I like the squats and the deadlifts. I enjoy it. It feels good. But bird dog is always in my warm up every single time. I love it. I think it does a body good. It's something anybody can do. You don't have to be strong to do it. You just have to be willing to do it. So bird dog, definitely. Another one that I've recently, not that recently, but probably in the last year, am incorporating a lot more of is the bear holds. So that's when and again, it looks, to watch somebody doing it, you're like, what's that doing? But trust me, get into a bear hold and hold it for a minute. Okay. And so that is, again, you're starting, the yoga phrase is tabletop. So you're on your hands and knees. Okay. Then you just curl your toes under, and all it is it's a very slight, it's like a micro movement. You just lift yourself up. So your knees are about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the floor. You get that curve in the back. Again, it's a great core movement. So it's kind of like a similar in plank, I think, as far as what it can offer. But, that's another favorite that anybody can do. And it's really going to help with that core strength. Cause I think core strength is something that everybody needs to probably put a little more time and thought into, having that. We do, the age that we live in, everything is so accessible to us here. And a lot of our current careers allow us to, like, we're at home working on computers. And so there's a lot more time sitting. And these are all movements that can help kind of get that spine, in alignment and start strengthening the core. My next one, honestly, walking. Get out and walk. Everybody that is able to can walk, and you don't need a gym membership. You don't need any fancy equipment. You just need shoes and a place to walk. And you can go do it at the mall. I mean, here in Florida, like summertime, it's quite hot. So sometimes going out, I walk here. I try to get my 10,000 steps in every day, either early in the morning or later, because the middle of the day, it's really hot. But you can go into any mall in America and you can see these seniors groups and they're walking clubs. And I think it's fantastic. Just walk. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. Practical things people could be doing on a regular basis. Yeah. We could also throw in there squats, deadlifts, things like that.
I mean, those are like, if you were to ask me what are my favorite lifts, I got a whole list.
All my favorites. Yeah, absolutely. Because they are really, they're compound exercises, right? Using multiple muscle groups, and, you really get a great impact. And you can modify those movements.
Absolutely.
Depending on who's out there, depending on if you have issues with your knees, things like that. There's all different types of modifications, but those are definitely great exercises people should do. And if you just feel like, wow, I don't even know where to get started with this, then just like you mentioned before, really getting a good coach can help you with that.
Right. And start with your body weight. I think one of the great things that came out of COVID and lockdown was that all of a sudden, I think for people that maybe were just, they needed the gym, like they needed that gym, realize that there's a lot of things I can do at home. And I think for people that maybe started during that time frame to do a little more exercise, realize the value of body weight. Because I've often said in a lot of the YouTube videos that I do that, if even for myself, if I go out into the gym, if I want to do bench press today, my bench press is my weakest. I love bench press. It's my weakest lift. There's no way that I could lift 147 pounds. There's no way I could do it. But I carry around 147 pounds all the time. So do not discount the value of your own body weight and going through proper form and execution to do things like a body weight squat or even a deadlift. There's so many bigger movement type of exercises we can do starting with body weight that are going to have a huge benefit.
So last question, what does a day in the life look like for you? As far as like, what time are you getting up?
It's really boring.
What do your meals typically look like?
Okay.
Things like that. This is what people want to know. They want to know, what.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I always have my alarm set but I always wake up before my alarm. I usually get up somewhere between 5:15 in the morning. It's just, that's when I wake up. And yeah. And that is when I'm most creative. So I usually, before I even do anything, like before I even shower or anything, I sit down and I start doing some kind of content creation because I'm primed. So I do that. I do have a cup of coffee. Then I get ready for, if it's going to the office day, I head into work here in my lovely office here in Clearwater, Florida. And it's a full-on work day, content creation, meetings, discussing new products we want to launch or how to relaunch other products. So it's busy and I love it. It's just busy, busy, busy. And if it's a filming day, I'm making videos for our YouTube channels. I'm usually here till, it depends. I'm either here till 4 so I can beat the traffic into Tampa, or I stay later so I still miss the traffic. But, when I get home, I try to, I'm not always that great at, but I try to just drop my things off into my apartment and then I do this huge walk. It takes me like an hour and a half because I love being outside. I want to get moving. I kind of skipped over a few things. So when I'm at work, I have my workout where we do. So I'm lucky we have a huge gym that's part of our offices. So I can work out. I do my hour workout. My meals are always sort of pre-prepped. I usually Sunday is kind of meal prep day. So I have a protein, so it could be chicken, it could be a small steak or something. And whether it's a salad or some kind of vegetables, I love Brussels sprouts, I love asparagus, I love salad. So that's kind of, my meals are good, but they're not overly exciting. It's protein and whatever vegetable I choose. Go home. I get my walk in. Supper's pretty much very similar, protein, a vegetable or salad. Friday, I usually have a glass of white wine with my dinner. And I tend to do a bit more work, but at 9:00, things get shut down and I start my evening routine. I just, maybe a bath, read a book, do some stretching, and that's my day. It's not overly exciting, but it's good.
Well, there you go. And people can find out more about you, of course, with your podcast, Strong by Design podcast. They can check that out. They can also find your various products, your Unlock Your Spine, Menopause Rescue Protocol. Where do they find all of that?
They can go to our website, www.criticalbench.com. They can also find me on our YouTube. We have 2 YouTube channels. We have Critical Bench and Critical Bench Compound. So in a lot of those videos, we provide links that'll take you to all of our products, as well as we have several free reports like stretching reports and cravings reports, things that you can just download instantly and start using them right away. So we're out there.
Great. Definitely check them out. They got a great YouTube channel, criticalbench.com, millions and millions of views. And you can see Tonya doing a lot of the different exercises and showing you different stretches and strengthening exercises. So definitely take advantage of that, guys. It's been a great interview. Tonya, any last words of inspiration for our audience here?
Yeah, what I will say is wherever you're at right now, start there. Start there and pick one thing you want to do for the next week, whether that's you're going to drink a little more water, or you're going to make a point of with your spouse or your children, or just on your own. You're going to, after dinner this evening, you're going to go take a 20-minute walk. Just pick one thing and do it for 5 days. And at the end of the 5 days, give yourself a high five and add something else, but start where you're at so that you feel the success, because when you feel the success, you're going to keep going. And if you keep going, things just get better and better and better.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Tonya.
Thank
Guys,
you.
Definitely check out her YouTube channel, criticalbench.com, and all her various products. We'll have that in the show notes. And we'll see you guys on our future podcast. Be blessed, everybody.